Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you with another edition of STS Radio. Last week we kicked this thing off. I thought that it was a really big success. I'd like to thank everybody for checking it out and coming back and giving us another listen to us this week. The world of wrestling this week has been a pretty fun world. Definitely Monday Night Raw was a big pickup from last week. We moved in the right direction of, the Bellas, still are the Bellas, and that is what it is going to be. I guess it paid off. Total Divas was a big-time success on the E! Network, bringing in millions and millions of viewers over there for, I don't know why they would choose to plug it like this, but basically WWE plugged it as the largest Season 3 kickoff episode in the history of E! in the last 4 years. So, I guess that's give them a round of applause, but I'm not 100% sure if that really means anything in the world of anything. I was going to start out talking about, WWE and the Night of Champions upcoming pay-per-view, but right now I think the focus of WWE is on the guys of tomorrow. On Thursday, we're going to have the NXT Takeover event. It's going to be held on the WWE Network. Definitely one of the big fun things that there is on the WWE Network. There's a lot of fun things out there right now. If you got the network, of course, you're going to be watching things like the Monday Night War series that's going down. Of course, everybody signs up to get those monthly pay-per-views of the big-time action that we used to have to pay $45 a month for. WCW has recently been uploaded the first 2 years of Nitro. Of course, you've got all of your library of WWE, WWF, ECW, and WCW pay-per-views. So definitely, this is just one more fun thing. I don't know if it was strategic sort of planning by WWE, but I guess that the rumored move of SmackDown on the Sci-Fi Network, moving it from Friday to Thursday, isn't going to be happening. But WWE was able to, I don't know if they really made him or if they just did it because maybe football, but I definitely think that it had a lot to do with the fact that they were rumored to moving to Thursdays. Spike TV has picked up and moved TNA Impact from Thursday nights, moving them now to Wednesdays, which basically sets the table for every wrestling fan who has the WWE Network to watch NXT unopposed. If you're not a football fan or a comedy fan who likes to watch comedy sitcoms or anything like that, but basically Thursday night now 100% belongs to NXT and Triple H. There were those rumors, basically, not really rumors, but jokes, I guess you can say, of the Thursday night wars. Basically, NXT versus TNA, and I guess Dixie Carter picked up her bags and moved to a different night, maybe hoping that she would have more success over there. There's been rumors of Dixie Carter, talking to other networks about moving Spike TV after their deal ends. I believe it would be Christmas Eve, or maybe it expires New Year's Eve, one or the other. I know that both of those are nights that Impact will air later on in the year. I don't know if Impact would want to do a go-home on New Year's Eve, but it would be a fun way to end off that show. But NXT is moving towards, just building the new stars of the future. I could talk about NXT for a whole hour right now today. I got to listen in on the Triple H interview. It was almost like a Triple H podcast talking about NXT. It was sort of like a conference call with members of the press being able to buzz in and ask Triple H a number of questions about what's going on with NXT, what's going on in WWE. He's done these a few times. I think it's been for each of the NXT sort of shows in order to get the press talking about what's going on in NXT. He actually openly invited any member of the press, if they wanted to come down to the Performance Center to check it out, that they have an open door to come in. And he talked about a member of the Muscle and Fitness writing staff who actually went through a week of drills seeing what the wrestlers were doing down there. And Triple H was saying that basically he went into it thinking that he was just going to be sort of minor league going through, and he found out that WWE really does push these NXT guys to the limits. Making sure that they get pushed all the way. The way Triple H talks about NXT honestly sort of makes me rethink about what this is. I honestly had always thought about NXT as some sort of a developmental, minor league system for the WWE, basically trying to find the stars tomorrow, finding them a spot to bring them up to Monday Night Raw or put them on SmackDown in order to just, keep replenishing the roster, because that's what I thought the whole Performance Center was all about. But basically, when Triple H talks about NXT, I know he's going to put over his own brand, but that's what he really thinks that this is. He really does think of NXT as its own brand. I remember the press, it almost said that, the way that NXT was being shown on the WWE Network was almost like it was its own promotion, much like a third promotion back in the day, like it would be sort of like an ECW. And Triple H is saying that, if you want to label us ECW, I'll take that. But the way that I want to keep pushing my guys is I want to make us from ECW, I want to make us WCW. I think that a lot of people are thinking that, the stars of tomorrow that are down there, Adrian Neville, of course, you've got Sami Zayn, Tyler Breeze, basically the three of the guys that are in the main event. A lot of people are Mojo Rawley or Enzo Amore fans, big-time fans of the Ascension. Everybody wants to see more tag teams in WWE because we've all seen the Usos basically fight Stardust and Goldust and the Wyatt family. We've seen them each fight them like 1,000 times, and no one knows where they're going. One team that was out there, Ryback and Curtis Axel. Of course, Ryback has the injury, so that team's going to be on the shelf for a little bit. So, the way I heard Triple H really talking about NXT was that if there is a spot that opens up and it makes sense to move these guys up, he'll move them up. But he doesn't really think of NXT as a feeder program. He wants to build this up to basically where it is a third brand, what it once was for WWE. I don't know if they're trying to take it off the WWE Network and put it onto television, but it's almost like he wants this to be the WWE ECW show that used to be on Sci-Fi on Tuesday nights, where basically, if you go back to, I think that debuted in 2006, was a very bad wrestling show. But honestly, for me, I loved the fact that it was only 1 hour. I loved the fact, I didn't really like it at the very beginning when they were bringing in big stars and they were trying to, tout it out as basically the first time DX ever appearing in ECW, first time Ric Flair ever appears in ECW. You get it, so on and so forth. The Undertaker showed up one time. They were trying to make it seem like their ECW was ECW. Like there was never this, I guess that would be 5 years if ECW closed in 2001, a 5-year gap in between shows, and they were just going strong, and all of a sudden now they're just on television. I know that Vince was trying to capitalize on basically, ECW, being something that was really in a lot of fans' hearts. Even TNA tried to cash in on this with Hardcore Justice. 2010, one of the worst pay-per-views of all time in my mind. But basically, Triple H thinks of NXT growing to be there. So maybe we're not going to see guys like Adrian Neville or Sami Zayn pop up on Monday Night Raw sooner than later. Maybe he wants this to sort of be established as the Thursday show, and these are the stars that are going to be on there. And then once guys start, dying out, or maybe they'll do a draft, or maybe they'll do something to mix things around. NXT, when they first started getting going, the reason why they were one way they were trying to get us to go over and watch these shows was bringing in, the big stars and mixing them in with the guys of tomorrow. We got to see, Chris Jericho go down there and battle Bray Wyatt. CM Punk went down there and he was involved in some sort of a mixed tag. John Cena's been down there. In the last few months we saw the Great Khali go down, Brodus Clay, Rob Van Dam versus Adrian Neville had a damn good match that everybody in the world should have gone out of their way to watch. Of course, I don't know why I didn't bring this up first. Cesaro, one of the first NXT graduates, went back down to NXT to, get over Sami Zayn. They had a very, they had two really good matches. Two matches that were, sort of qualified as match of the year. One of the matches that was held on the first NXT special, which would be the NXT Arrival show, which was February of 2014. That was the match that really earned Triple H's respect. Sami Zayn was always a great wrestler, and Triple H is a guy that it's always been trying to teach him to moving forward, and he really, sort of gave him props for, being able to come out of the mask as El Generico, basically, being able to take the mask off and start wrestling as a real wrestler would. I think a lot of people, when Generico went there, even me, I would love to see Generico return. He was one of my favorite guys to watch in Ring of Honor and PWG. I know that I wasn't watching him when he was actually there, and the stuff that I'm watching now is older. Both of his greatest hits DVDs that are available from each one of those companies are awesome. He's always been a good wrestler, and he's always been able to, rise up and above what a lot of people thought that he was going to be. I wasn't even 100% sure that once he took the mask off, he was going to last in NXT. And here he is, being one of the number one contenders going for the championship in the Fatal 4-Way. This is going to be a great show. I mean, honestly, I didn't know a lot about NXT when NXT Arrival came on, and I really watched it just to see the Cesaro versus Sami Zayn match because it had so much hype. And then, of course, also you get to see Paige go up against Emma, where they crowned the NXT Women's Championship, and then you had Adrian Neville go up against Bo Dallas in the ladder match for the NXT Championship as well. Those are the three reasons that I tuned in, and I can't say that I really got connected with the people that are down there because NXT still isn't something that I'm regularly watching. Now that Impact is, I can't even really give that as an excuse because I haven't really been giving 100% of my time to Impact. But now that basically summer's over and there's a lot more free time, basically with my friends not getting on and we're not talking on Skype all the time on Thursday nights. Maybe NXT would be something that really does take a priority. When I hear there's a good match, basically I go to my way to watch it. But I think that this show would honestly mean more. Definitely with the Fatal 4-Way match, this has been something that's building up since Adrian Neville against Tyson Kidd and NXT Takeover and everything that went along with that, where basically Tyson Kidd was trying to cheat to win and was doing everything he could, even exposing Natalya at ringside and using her injury to try and get the win there. But each one of these, big, I don't know if you call these pay-per-views or specials or what they are, has really raised the bar. When NXT announced they were going to do another one and they called it Takeover, I sort of thought, why are you repeating this show after, I understand if you had, Takeover 2013 and Takeover 2014, that's sort of the way it works, but, I mean, NXT Takeover isn't really sounding like WWE in your house. It doesn't really seemed like something you're just going to keep putting a number on. And then once they were able to come out with their match, that it was going to be a Fatal 4-Way, damn, it does make a lot of it does make a lot of sense. With the main event, you got Adrian Neville, Sami Zayn, Tyler Breeze, and Tyson Kidd. We just saw all of these guys on Monday Night Raw. They all, well, I guess Tyson Kidd didn't. They all... The three of the four made their Monday Night Raw debuts. Tyson Kidd's a guy that's been in WWE, honestly, since, I guess, 2009. And he was a great member of the Hart Dynasty. When Tyson Kidd broke up, I believe he's in the 2010... That would be the 2010 Money in the Bank. I believe he was one of the contenders in there. A lot of people were picking him to win. He's a guy that's had a lot of fans there. Yeah, he hasn't had a whole lot of matches. He hasn't won a match on WWE TV in a long time. And when Triple H talked about Tyson Kidd on that conference call I talked about, basically Triple H talked about Tyson Kidd about being one of the stars of tomorrow that will be future main eventing. I know that when he came into WWE, he was a little bit younger, and it's sort of surprisingly that you would see somebody that was sort of in that lower mid-card jobber status, come from behind, but he's really come into his own down there in NXT. I mean, a lot more when Adrian Neville was battling, Brodus Clay. Brodus Clay just seemed to be down there, doing work because that's just what he was told to do. He wasn't going above and beyond, making sure Adrian Neville, had a good match and looked good in front of the people. He got told, you're gonna go down there, you're gonna lose, and then we're gonna do something else with you on Monday Night Raw. And that was just about it. It just seemed like you're gonna go down there, you're gonna work the tapings, and that's it. But I mean, Tyson Kidd's been down there for months. Of course, from Total Divas, he lives near the Performance Center, so it must be nice for him to be working close to home. But definitely he's doing an awesome job down there. And if it's like Tyson Kidd is on Total Divas, if he gets to roll around with Eva Marie every once in a while, he's got a good job. Adrian Neville, the champion of NXT, I think he's going to be pulling it out. Some people think that Tyler Breeze is going to do it, and then basically Neville will go on and be the first guy to sort of go to Monday Night Raw. With Triple H talking about this being his own brand, I wouldn't be surprised if Neville keeps the championship here and we see another day, especially keeping these guys down there and sort of reestablishing them in feuds and, moving. But then again, if you're only going to be having these specials that look like pay-per-views and you're only going to be having 5 matches that feature maybe, that would be 5, be 10, maybe 12 to 15 guys, depending if you have a 4-way or a tag team match along the way. How are you going to make room for guys that Triple H has signed recently? You got Prince Devitt, Kevin Steen, you got Kenta, who's also making his debut on this NXT show. Basically, how do you find room for these guys? You've got to be moving guys up if you want to do this, or are they going to end up making this a 3-hour show down the road? Sami Zayn, I think, honestly, is the ultimate underdog in NXT. I look at him as sort of being the Tommy Dreamer of ECW. I wouldn't be surprised if Zayn is a guy that always has good matches, always in that title hunt, but can never pull down the big one. I don't think that it's some sort of a backstabbing thing to do against Sami Zayn. I just think that it's just not going to work out for him anytime along the way, and I think that's going to make him better, is that storyline of him never being able to do it. You can also establish some sort of a heel turn down the road and sort of have Sami as a bad guy, even though he's the guy that everybody loves down there, and see if he's able to establish himself as the heel. As far as I know, El Generico had some dark days when he went up against Kevin Steen, and he came back and he was wearing the black mask, and he was just going above and beyond to make sure that he was going to kill Kevin Steen, because Kevin Steen had killed him. The fans still loved him, and it was still a babyface in all their minds. But I'm going to be picking Adrian Neville to win the big one and keep the championship there. They're going to be doing the debut of Kenta on this NXT show as well. He's going to be, coming out in front of the crowd with Ric Flair. I don't really know why they would do this if it's not going to be a really big deal. We've already seen the picture of Kenta meeting Triple H at the Performance Center. We've already seen a picture of Kenta meeting with Triple H and Vince McMahon on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. It's been passed around the world 1,000 times. But I guess this is going to be the first time he's going to be on screen. There's 2 things. I know Triple H is going to make his signings look like $1 million, and I know he's going to make Ric Flair look like $1 million. Ric Flair, one of his childhood idols. Basically, it's also one of his best friends in real life. Ric Flair was one of the guys that stood up for Triple H at his wedding. I believe Triple H even stood up for Ric Flair at a few of his. So there is that thing of they're going to make sure that they're going to make sure that Flair is there for a reason. I know that Rick almost overshadowed the Women's Championship match the last show with Charlotte going up against Natalya. Ric Flair and Bret Hart were outside at ringside, and Flair made sure WWE got his money's worth. It was almost to the point of Charlotte was his daughter, but I think a lot of people were paying attention to Rick on the outside, selling the fact that Natalya had Charlotte in the sharpshooter and he didn't want her to tap out, and just the overexcitement. Everybody knows that Ric Flair is a crier. He's very emotional. He's going to get involved, especially with his kids' lives. Something that in his book you can tell that he really cares about his family. He even writes about that he even really cared about his ex-wife, even though he slept with about every woman in town, I guess you can say. He really has that connection. When he gets onto a plane and it's going to be a long trip, he makes sure that he gets in contact with every single one of his kids, because he wants them to know that he loves them just in case anything happens. Because, Ric Flair went through the plane crash earlier in his career, and it just makes you think about, you better be blessed for tomorrow, because it's not guaranteed. I don't know. They asked Kenta, they asked Triple H, is Kenta going to be keeping his name? Because we keep seeing Kenta's name pop up on the website, and that's the way it's being sort of pushed, as that Kenta is going to be debuting. Is that he's keeping the name now for the name value, that everybody knows him from wrestling over in Japan as a big star, and basically what he did when he came to ROH back in the day when he wrestled against Daniel Bryan, a very popular match that I've heard about for years, that I haven't gone out of my way to watch, that I wish I would have. I think it's on a best of compilation that I have. Maybe I should go out of my way to find that before tomorrow's show, so when he debuts I can actually guess I've seen one of his matches before. But Kenta debuting, I don't know if you work a program with Ric Flair. I don't know if Ric Flair is just there to give his blessing to him, saying that, basically Ric Flair's wrestled in Japan a lot and this is one of the best, that he's going to put him over. Are we actually going to see Kenta getting involved in something along the way, or is it just going to be just basically another camera ceremony along the way? I'm not sure. But definitely I know that it's going to be a big deal, whatever they do. I don't know if maybe Triple H will fight Ric Flair in the middle of the ring, but it's going to be big. In the NXT Women's Championship match, we got Charlotte going up against Bayley. Honestly, in my mind, I can see Charlotte winning this. Bayley, of course, a Northern California girl who went to wrestling school at BTW. It was funny when I went to WrestleFest over there this year. They were trying to get people to sign up for the school as a way to, keep the promotion, going, and it's a big money maker for them. They post a lot of pictures up on the website, and on their Facebook as well. But she's the biggest star to come out of there. She's really come on strong. I think everybody knows about the Bayley hug gimmick. I think that definitely she's going to be a big star in the business someday when she makes the move up. But I'm going to take Charlotte, continuing on her run with the Women's Championship there. The Ascension is going to be going up against Kalisto and Sin Cara. I think there's a lot of people out there really praying that the Luchadors are going to be able to pull out the win against the Ascension, just for the fact that I think a lot of people really want to see Ascension on television. They got to make their main event debut on Tuesday night. You go out of your way to make sure you watch that match, because a lot of people thought that when they worked their Madison Square Garden show at the end of last year, they made their debut, that was their calling card of being called up to the company sooner than later. That hasn't happened. I'm sure it's going to happen sooner than later. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do win this. One of the things that was brought up along the way about really getting people to know that NXT is a really special thing was brought up by my friend Brandon. Instant Classic 8 on Twitter. No, The Real Classic on Twitter. Instant Classic 8 on YouTube. And basically he was tweeting the other day. He was saying, basically, why don't you have one of the stars of WWE go down to NXT? It's not like a lot of those mid-card titles mean anything, and have them drop one of those titles, and then you have those guys bring the championship to Raw or SmackDown, acting like, who is this guy? We didn't even get to see him, win the title on television, but now he's the champion. It'll almost be like some sort of a change, but it'll be enough to make people know that NXT is something that really people care about. I know that a lot of people aren't going out of their way, and the people that are really getting a treat in a special show with this. But I'm going to pick Ascension to keep the championship, beating Kalisto is the guy that I've seen him wrestle a few times. I don't like the fact that he chants with the crowd. I think if he just shut up and just wrestled instead of chanting Lucha, Lucha, and trying to get people to chant that throughout the match. Maybe why did I say that? But basically, I think that the Ascension will pull out that. Adam Rose, no, fuck me, I'm looking at the wrong card. I apologize. I thought the Kalisto was teaming with Sin Cara because they had the tag match on last week. But I am picking the Ascension to pull out that win. From there, we'll go to Enzo Amore going up against Sylvester Lafort. I'll take Enzo Amore to get that. And then Mojo Rawley is going to be going up against the new talent, Bull Dempsey, who just came into NXT, I believe, about a month ago. Ever since Mojo Rawley just got kicked in the head and pinned in just a matter of a few seconds, I've been picking against him every week. I don't know what happened. Mojo Rawley was the guy that seemed like was on the rise just a few months ago. He got the win against CJ Parker at the NXT Arrival show. And we haven't really seen anything from him since. But that's going to be the NXT Takeover show. It's going to be labeled Fatal 4-Way. It's going to be Thursday night on the WWE Network. Make sure you guys go out of your way. That's definitely going to be a show that you don't want to miss. Monday Night Raw, like I touched on earlier, it was a good show. It was a lot better than last week. Definitely, it had some highs. Definitely, it had some lows. If you think about Brock Lesnar, not being there, he's gonna be there on Monday this week. John Cena had a series of promos going up against Paul Heyman. These were really, really good. John Cena came out there and gave a promo about what it's like to be John Cena. And, he likes putting smiles on fans' faces. He understands that the little kids might love him and their older adults might hate him, but deep down he knows that they respect him. He knows that he loves putting smiles on soldiers' faces and giving them a reason to fight. He loves helping the Make-A-Wish kids and everything like that. But Paul Heyman, basically gave the formula. This is how you beat Brock Lesnar, John, is that you have to go and find your evil side. This is something that's been haunting John for a while. It seems like they're in a rut, and every time they get in this rut with John Cena of trying to build a storyline for him, they try to play to the internet's hand of, why is John Cena never turned heel? John Cena was a heel back on SmackDown when he first started the rapping gimmick, and then shortly after winning the United States Championship, we saw a big face turn from him. The battle with Carlito when he got stabbed in the nightclub back in the day, and he went through winning the United States Championship. He was able to get it back from Carlito. Then he would go on. He would lose it to Jordan, but he beat JBL at WrestleMania. And then it just keeps building. He goes on. He beats Triple H. He beats Shawn Michaels. He beats Batista. John Cena's career has just been huge. And it almost sort of resembles Hulk Hogan's when you think about it. Hulk Hogan, when he first came into WWF back in the day, he wore the yellow cape. He was the bad guy, and then he left for a little while. He went and became a big star in Japan. He had some big days wrestling for the AWA. That's where Hulkamania really was born, and then he came to Vince McMahon in the WWF, and that's where they had him beat the Iron Sheik at the Madison Square Garden, and Hulkamania was pushed 10 times stronger than it ever was. It was the red and yellow, and for years, even the dying days, Vince never wanted to turn Hulk Hogan heel. He never believed it would work. If you go back and you watch the last days of basically, especially the Royal Rumble where Ric Flair got the win, when Sid Justice came and dumped Hulk Hogan out, you can just hear the crowd pop, and it's not from the surprise of Hulk Hogan not winning, it's the cheers of not seeing the same damn thing year after year with Hogan winning the Rumbles in would that be 89 and 90? There was no, special, I guess you can say gimmick to go along with it. It wasn't like, when Ric Flair won it, he won the WWE Championship. It wasn't like when Yokozuna won, he became the first guy to go on to WrestleMania, become the #1 contender to go up against Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10. Basically those Rumbles were just for buys, I guess you can say. If you look at the, when Ric Flair was in the ring with Sid Justice and Hogan basically got dumped out of the Rumble. You just saw that the fans had enough of Hulk Hogan. They popped. They went crazy. They went bananas. It wasn't because, they knew that they were setting up for a match at WrestleMania between Sid and Hogan. It was the fact that they were getting something fresh. Somebody finally was not going to be champion besides for Hulk Hogan. Of course, that was all set up because of the match with The Undertaker at Survivor Series on Tuesday in Texas, with Hogan actually losing the championship. And then, of course, Hogan would come back at WrestleMania 9. Basically, business wasn't going the way it was supposed to be going, so Vince went with Hogan one more time because he thought that's what was going to be able to save his company. And, Hogan came back, he won the title. Then he would leave again after the King of the Ring. He would go to WCW after being talked into coming back to wrestling for a looser schedule of only having to work a couple dates, which basically got blown up with Monday Nitro being started and Hulk Hogan being one of the big focuses of that show. But then again, Hogan was on the first 2 episodes of Nitro, and I was really sort of surprised by that because I knew that he had to have some sort of a killer contract. That I knew they were paying him a lot to have those shows. One of them to come out there and wrestle against the Big Boss Man, and the next one he fought against Lex Luger. And then, of course, after War Games, he was injured by the Giant, and he would do. He wouldn't be on the 3rd show, and then he did a pre-tape interview on the 4th, but told everybody he was going to be there for the next week's episode in Denver for a face-to-face with the Giant after the Giant beat up the Macho Man on week 4. I haven't seen 5, so that's where I am. Watching those on the network. But basically, it was Eric Bischoff's genius idea. I don't know if he thought it would really work or if he was just pulling at straws, trying to get anything that was going to save his job, because maybe he just felt he wasn't really delivering on what he promised Ted Turner back in the day. But Hogan turning heel definitely turned WCW's woes around. They went from being the second-rate company to having Vince McMahon look up at them, and basically he kicked some sand in Vince's eyes on the way, and he took over. It was I think a 2-year run. I should know by now by watching all these episodes of the WWE versus WCW Monday Night Wars documentaries that are on the WWE Network. They're a lot of fun, but basically that's what the internet wants from John Cena. I don't think it's everybody, but there's a lot of people out there begging because they want to see something fresh. They want to see something new. On my way to this year's Night of Champions, I watched the past year's Night of Champions to sort of get in the mood of seeing what was going down. And you go back to Night of Champions when Mark Henry beat Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship. And Henry was a heel, and he got the biggest pop of the night just because it was something fresh. We were seeing, Mark Henry become World Heavyweight Champion. I don't think it's the fact that he had a lot of fans in the crowd that really respected him, because I think a lot of people make the sexual chocolate jokes for Mark, and I don't think there's a lot of respect behind those jokes. It's sort of pointing your finger at him. He's had a long career, but I don't think Mark Henry has a lot of fans. You definitely don't see a lot of people buying Mark Henry T-shirts and things like that. But I don't think we'll ever see a John Cena heel turn, but that was definitely what the focus is of the night was from there. Sheamus and Cesaro, I can't remember seeing them on them build up their match on Raw. If they did, it wasn't memorable. I know that they were on main events this week. Ziggler and Miz, I guess they're going with the comedy for this. I think that this would be really good if Ziggler and Miz just sort of went for a straight wrestling match. See who the better wrestler is. Instead, we had Ziggler coming out and talking about photos that have been stolen off the Miz's phone. Basically the Miz shaving his body, and there's just stupid things like that. And I know that they've added Damian Sandow as the stunt crash dummy, I guess you can say, of the Miz. That's fun. It's good. It's not great, but Ziggler and Miz, when they go out there, they can just have a good wrestling match. That's all I'm really looking for. The whole fiasco with the Bellas, which was basically a big old commercial to watch Total Divas involving Jerry Springer, that was a joke. I mean, the only people that really had to pay for that segment was the fans. It wasn't good. I don't think anybody was like, man, I really want to see Brie wrestle Nikki now. I know that if they do have a match, the only thing I can really hope for is some sort of a match where it was like the ECW stuff. The reason why I really wanted to see Brie versus Stephanie, because I thought we were going to see an ECW-style catfight. I'm not even 100% really sure if I really want to see this match. I think that the SummerSlam match was really pushed by seeing Stephanie McMahon in the ring for the first time in 10 years. So we'll have to see where they go from there. Shame for Jerry Springer. WWE got a lot of publicity out of the deal that Springer had to be, I guess you can say, wheeled out on a gurney because he broke his ankle. I haven't even heard if that was real or if it was fake. I'm guessing that it was fake, but it looked pretty real, whatever it was. Nikki turning on Brie at the pay-per-view was granted a title shot. She's going to be going up against Paige and AJ. How she's able to win this one, I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like Stephanie McMahon has sort of attached herself to Nikki, making her, one of the, the authority figures, or, being in that inner circle, much like how Triple H has stapled himself to Randy Orton and stapled himself to Seth Rollins. So I'm not quite sure if Stephanie's going to help Nikki win this or just give her the title shot, and that's going to be it. But Paige and AJ, hopefully they can pick up the load on this one. Of course, they still hate each other and love each other at the same time. Mark Henry, who we just talked about, is going to be going up against Rusev to support the good old US of A. It was nice to see Nikolai Volkov involved with Monday Night Raw. I haven't seen or heard about him in a long time. He looks about the way I thought he was going to. The Usos are going to be going up against Goldust and Stardust. That's going to be a match. Chris Jericho had the awesome cage match going up against Bray Wyatt. I thought that was really fun. After the match, he was attacked by Bray Wyatt, and then after that, he was attacked by Randy Orton again. Randy Orton is going to be going up against Chris Jericho. That was, I found out due to Chris Jericho's Instagram post. But Jericho is going to give it a go. I think anybody in the world would bet the house against Jericho that this will be his last match. There's a lot of people thinking that Monday would be it for him, and he would be hanging his hat and riding off into the sunset. But we'll have to see, what goes down from here. That definitely should be a match. It was one that I was really hoping for a while. It seems to me that they're going in the direction of Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, in my opinion, a little bit too fast. I know that Dean Ambrose got killed by the, I guess you can say, cinder blocks on Monday Night Raw, and Roman Reigns came down to try and save him by throwing the cinder block, trying to take out Seth Rollins. And it crushed on the turnbuckle. But honestly, I was hoping for a little bit more of a build-up. Roman Reigns having the big win over Randy Orton at SummerSlam. I know some people thought they were going to have another match along the way, but I guess they're going with Seth versus Roman already. It is what it is. Wouldn't be surprised if Roman kills him along the way. One of the big rumors that it's going around in WWE and TNA as well is the sinking ship of TNA. Dixie Carter can say all she wants to that there's going to be a home for TNA, but I think if I'm a wrestler for TNA and my contract is coming up, I'm looking for somewhere to make that next paycheck, because I'm not going to put my faith in Dixie Carter and Spike TV that they're going to work out some sort of a deal that I'm going to be there. One of the biggest stars they have in the company is Kurt Angle. Right now he's injured. He had the ACL injury. Kurt Angle says a lot of stuff, and it's hard to say, believe what he really says sometimes. He tends to sort of, overhype things. It just makes it seem like it's unbelievable, some of the things he says. Kurt Angle says he hasn't had an ACL in 5 years, and basically, not having the ACL so long made it where he thought his knee was slipping, and basically he had to go in and have it worked on. That's why he hasn't been wrestling, but he has been on television. He took over the role of being the operational talent relations, I guess you can say. He had a sit-down interview with Ring Rust Radio, and in that he basically talked about how what his future is going to hold. He says that basically he'll be back and ready to wrestle come December or January, and Kurt Angle's contract ends sooner than later. I believe it ends this month in September, and then he'll go home and he'll sit there for a while. Angle has said things through the press that basically the way that his financial situation is, I'm sure he's got a mortgage and some cars, and I don't know if he's having to pay that ex-wife of his or not, but basically he can't sit out a long time. He can't, leave TNA, and he can't wait for basically, Vince McMahon or Triple H to call him and bring him in and give it some time. He needs to know where that money's going to be coming from because, he's got other businesses along the way that he's supporting. He's got some failed businesses that didn't work out. I believe it was Angle Foods or something like that is the reason why he actually joined Twitter back in the day. Kurt Angle, to me, is one of the best wrestlers that I've ever seen. I've been a big fan of his, definitely with the TNA shows. A Kurt Angle match was a reason enough to watch it. Watch the whole show knowing that you were going to get it. You go back in the days when he was still in the WWE, it was almost like you always had a Kurt Angle match and you always had a Shawn Michaels match. That would make the pay-per-view great because you always knew you were going to get two good shows. That's why when they actually matched up at WrestleMania 21, that was like the perfect dream match for me. One of my favorite matches that I've ever seen. But basically, with Kurt Angle, is he ever going to get that call? He's had a lot of dark days with his days in TNA. He claims to be clean. He claims to be drug and alcohol free. And, he's not going to get that sort of bad headline from TMZ, basically getting another DUI arrest. And I know that he says that his rap sheet is clear that, he was able to fight the charges of the DUIs. I know one was like in North Dakota when he passed out and he hit a snowbank after a show, and I can't remember where the other one was. But to me, honestly, just because you have some money and you pay a lawyer and they find a loophole and you get your way out of it, doesn't mean that the people forget that, the bad situation that you put yourself in. And I think that's one of the main reasons why WWE doesn't want to bring him in. I know there's a lot of people out there who seem to believe that Triple H and him have this big-time heat, and it goes back, and I would have believed that, but basically, Triple H did a podcast with Chris Jericho. I'm sure that you guys have all listened to it. If not, go out of your way. It was a two-parter. I believe it was last week, Talk is Jericho. One downloaded on Wednesday, one downloaded on Friday, and basically talks about the heat that everybody knows about between Chris Jericho and Triple H, and just basically Triple H's heat with Chris Jericho is that he was overprotective about his spot in WWF, and he just basically saw Chris Jericho as a guy that bailed on WCW. He didn't know why he left WCW. All he knew that he was here, and basically, was going after the same spot he was. He didn't feel that, since he was in the trenches actually doing the work to actually, have WWE beating WCW, that the WCW guy shouldn't be able to jump from his ship and jump onto theirs and keep rolling. And Triple H said that, he wished that he would have seen it a different way. He wished he would have embraced Jericho coming in there because basically they had a lot of good matches, basically built off that heat with Jericho trying to impress Triple H, trying to show him how good he really was, and Triple H always trying to outshine Jericho. If they only would have been working together the whole time, it would have been a whole lot better. And I think that's the heat that Angle and Triple H have. Each one was trying to always upstage the other one. If you go back to their run in like 99 and 2000, basically, Angle was always, that fast learner. And then when he would get there and they would main event the SummerSlam, it would be Angle, Triple H, and The Rock. They had a really good match. Of course, that's the one that Angle got knocked out in when he did the table spot. I can't remember if it was the pedigree or if it was the rock bottom. But then, basically he had to leave, and then Stephanie ended up talking him into coming back. A lot of that stuff. They really did battle. They always had really, really good matches. And I don't really know what Kurt Angle has left in the tank. A really good Kurt Angle match from TNA. His last one that I can remember doesn't come that easy. I'm not saying that he hasn't had good matches. Maybe if you brought one up, I'd be able to say, like, yeah, that was damn good. The last one that I can remember was Angle against Bobby Roode at Bound for Glory last year. That was the one where Bobby Roode had the submission hold and Angle was right there at the ropes. But instead of grabbing him, he passed out and he lost the match. And, of course, then he had to be taken to the back on the stretcher. And then he sort of beat up the EMTs and he wanted to walk to show how tough he was. And then he turned down joining the TNA Hall of Fame because he didn't feel like he should be able to be in the TNA Hall of Fame because he kept losing. Trust me, Kurt, you're one of the best things TNA's ever had. and they know it, and you should know it also. When push comes to shove, I know that they have some good trainers down there at NXT at the Performance Center. You got Bill DeMott, is a guy that's been in the company for a long time. Of course, been one of the hosts of Tough Enough. You got Billy Gunn, a really good wrestler who's got a lot of skills. Definitely can't help with the promos that well. Kurt is somebody who I can't think of really being that strong as a promo, but definitely being as good as a wrestler is. There's no way in the world that he couldn't get in there and even teach the girls how to wrestle. I mean, that's a job that I guess a lot of people have given a tip of the cap to Finley to. Goldust as well, and Jamie Noble, 3 guys that just sort of took over being the agents for the women's matches, and basically those matches have really shined, and a lot of people have always came back and said it was one of those 3 guys that was the agent that really helped them build their match and have the best thing they could get going. Angle to me fits in with the WWE. If they can find a spot for him, I would love it. I know he wants to have one more big WrestleMania match, but to me, it's almost like I group him in there with Sting. Is that I don't know who you would have the match with. I know that right now you're running with the Rusev undefeated streak, but I don't really see Angle coming in as being that guy who just beats Rusev, and then where do you go from there? But somebody has to beat him. I mean, Rusev's been running ruckshot all over the company, beating guys. Biggie Langston, Jack Swagger. He's going to beat Mark Henry at the pay-per-view. Do you really see this ending with a match that's basically Kurt Angle versus Rusev? Of course, Kurt Angle would beat Rusev. I don't know if you do this at the WrestleMania. Maybe you give Kurt Angle some sort of a Royal Rumble comeback. But then where do you go with Kurt Angle? Is that his retirement goodbye match? Is that the American hero returns? He gets the win over Russia, and then what does Rusev really have? I know he has to lose sometime. That was one of the reasons why a lot of people were picking Jack Swagger to win the flag match, was just to get that loss out of the way. Because then once you get so many wins and you're undefeated, you get to the Goldberg status of you're too big to lose. But you got to lose to make it interesting. And you don't want to have your first loss be against, Kenny Chaos or somebody like that. But Angle and WWF makes sense to me. I think it is something that, it definitely should be worked out and really getting it down together. Wrestling lost one of its stars from the past. Sean O'Haire passed away. It's been rumored to be some sort of a suicide. I know a lot of people make videos, giving their rest in peace to wrestlers along the way. I honestly can't do it for Sean O'Haire. I know he was a wrestler for WWE and WCW. I remember him more in WCW more than I remember him in WWE. When he came back, it was at a time when I wasn't watching wrestling as much, and he sort of had that evil sort of gimmick of the devil's hand, I guess you can sort of say. And I think he was even paired up with Roddy Piper for a bit, but there was time I wasn't really watching. I remember his stuff when he was involved with the natural born players. Is that right? I remember Mike Sanders. He was one of my favorite guys, and then everybody else was with him. Of course, he had O'Haire, Palumbo, Jindrag, and there was a series of tag team matches when these guys first came up before they were paired together, and that's what I remember more than anything else. But it's always sad. I know that he has a bag of demons that goes along with it, but we'll have to see we'll have to see how this all pans out at the end once the story's finally all out and we finally see what happened with this. Daniel Bryan might be coming back sooner than expected. A lot of people were expecting him to have a Royal Rumble return this year. It seems that maybe he'll be ready to go in 3 months. If he does have this surgery, so that'd be September, October, November. Maybe he comes back in November. Maybe he comes back in December. I don't know how you build him back up. You have him come right in and then have him like at the TLC pay-per-view, wrestle in a tables match, a ladder match. You're going to put him in a chairs match, a TLC match. At this point, I don't think you can make him a surprise, but it's almost to the point of have this guy's first match be the Royal Rumble. It'd make a lot of sense. I don't know if you have him win it, but definitely you have the huge storyline of Daniel Bryan actually being in the Rumble this year, unlike last year where he was kept out, and they tried to play it out like it was the Authority. Triple H wouldn't give him a ping pong ball. Rey Mysterio is injured again. That's no real big news. But that's your world of wrestling. I thank everybody for hanging out this week. I had one sort of mistake. I'm trying a new thing with the audio. So we're going to have to see if this works out. I'm hoping that it comes across crystal clear. Of course, DJ is going to have to, work it out, and we'll figure it out. But we'll get a better editor, and we'll figure this out. But thank you very much. Another hour of wrestling talk. STS Radio with Stevie Breach. Peace out.